Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast. And I've got my 6 things already, just barely making it at the end of this week. I kept forgetting about it earlier in the week because it's just been crazy, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute, but here I am and ready to get started. So number 1, part of the craziness has been that my book Firmament Eleftheria is out, if you haven't heard. And now it is out in a little bit of a different way, and I can't remember if I've mentioned this at all on the podcast before, and I don't think I have, but so I'm actually releasing it first on a platform called Kindle Vella. It's something that Amazon and Kindle Publishing is doing. It's pretty new, I believe, and I had not heard of it until a fellow author that I've worked with on audiobooks several times approached me about trying it because she's had a lot of success with it. And this is a lady that's been very successful with self-publishing and who really stays on top of, the current trends and is a really good writer. And I trust her. We've worked together a long time. So I looked into it a little bit, took that suggestion seriously, and decided to just give it a shot because even though so I'll explain what it is first before I get into my reasoning. So basically it's just a platform that allows you to release a book serially. So you'll do one chapter or episode at a time, and you can do them as often as you want, though they recommend, at least a few a week. And so I just took the book and I've scheduled. So this past week I had 2 chapters, and then from here on out, there'll be 3 chapters a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so I'm really curious to see how that goes, even though it's different for me and I prefer to do things the way I've always done them in general. Plus, I really enjoy actually getting to have the paperback and hold it in my hands. And this means I'll still do that, but it'll be delayed a little bit. It is something that I thought that I should be willing to try because honestly, I have not been very successful with publishing. I make a very, very tiny amount each month from my books. And so I thought, I really don't have anything to lose from that standpoint. So I went ahead and tried it. Have no clue so far how it's going. But like I said, first couple chapters are out, and all of the stories on Kindle Vella, you can read the first 3 chapters for free. And then after that, you pay for tokens, and you use those tokens to purchase episodes or chapters, whatever you want to call them. So the first 2 are out for free. If you're looking for them, you can just look up Firmament Eleftheria on Amazon, and it'll bring up the Kindle Vella story, and you can check out those first couple chapters if you want. Get a little teaser. So number 2, I'm going to explain a little bit about how it'll work with releasing the paperback and the ebook later. So basically you can do that after you've already put something on Kindle Vella. You can later do a normal ebook and a paperback or whatever format you want, but you have to wait until all of the content has been out on Kindle Vella for at least 30 days. So it is going to have to wait, until the story is all finished, and then, wait another month after that. So looking at an October release for the paperback and the ebook, which would be good timing because, in time for Christmas, it's usually good to get books out in the fall for that reason. And it'll be out before Black Friday too. I usually participate in some sort of Black Friday sale. So I think that'll be good. And the nice thing is I'm already I have the cover already done. I have the editing already done. The only thing I have to do is just write the front and back matter, just, the special thanks, the dedication, just that sort of thing, the copyright page, it won't take long, and then get that stuff off to my formatter. And so I'm planning to just go ahead and do that in the next week or 2 so that there'll be no pressure when it comes time for the release. I'll just have everything ready. So that'll be good. That's the one sad thing for me, is having to delay being able to get that book that I can hold in my hands and put on my shelf with all the others. But I still do think it's worth it. I'm glad I decided to do this, whether it works or I ever do it again. I think, it's good for me to try something different. Number three, one of the downsides of this is that there are a few fans that have just been, super faithful to the series over the years who were very eager to read the book, which just makes me super happy, just knowing that there's other people out there that also love these characters and can enjoy the stories. And so anyway, there's one girl in particular I've known a really long time who is a huge fan of Alazone, and she knew he was going to be in this book after, having been almost a decade since he first appeared in the series. And it's been that long since she's been waiting to see him again. So she was kind of bummed out because she was like, oh, I've been waiting to read, just be able to sit down and read the whole book. And I don't do Kindle Vella, whatever. And so I was more than happy to, because I've been super eager to share the book with her and get her feedback since I knew it would mean a lot to her. And so anyway, I did go ahead and just make a PDF that I was able to send to a couple of readers that I knew would really appreciate the story. And so I did, I think both of them read it in one sitting, and I was able to get pretty quick feedback from them, and the reaction was exactly what I was hoping for. And they were really thrilled with the directions that I took, the story and the characters, and seemed to have a lot of the reactions that I had been attempting to give people from the book. So that was very satisfying, and that helped too with, kind of the uncertainty of doing it the new way. Like, at least I was able to have, a few people that I really cared about, them enjoying the book and hearing their thoughts. I was able to just go ahead and get that from them. So that just really meant a lot to me. I was glad that I was able to do that. And I really hope that all of my readers have the same reaction and enjoy it. And especially since it has been so long that we've been waiting to get back to some of these characters. Now, number 4, I usually do share a little tidbit about some of my daughters and their reading or writing related things. And so my daughter Violet loves to color and draw, and she's really good at it. She's amazing. And so she mostly uses colored pencils. But she was having a hard time distinguishing between the blue and the purple pencil because they're just both so dark. They look kind of similar. And so she was asking me every single time which one was blue and which one was purple, and trying to get me to come read the labels and see. And so finally I had a brilliant idea, and I told her, you know what? You know how you can tell? You can look at the words and see which one says Violet, because she can read her name, and the purple pencil says Violet. So I was like, see which one says Violet, and that one is purple, because she's just been learning lately that her name also means purple. And that's been very exciting. So now whenever she's doing that, she'll take the 2 pencils, she'll look at them, and then she'll just yell, like, so excited, like, this one says Violet, this one's purple. And she's just so proud of herself for reading it. And it's so cute, and just makes me so much more excited for when she can really read, and just all that it's going to open up for her, because she loves books and stories already. She'll, look at pages of books that I've read to her and sort of summarize the story based on what she can remember. And she just loves stories, and she really also loves words and writing words, as I've talked about before. So when she can read, I think it's going to be just amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. Number 5 on my currently reading, I'm reading my book club book for this month, which is called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and I'm really enjoying it. It's I think it was written in the 40s, but it's set in like the early 1900s in Brooklyn, obviously, and it's this little Irish girl and her family just growing up there and living there. And that's the interesting thing about it, is I'm really enjoying it. It's really well written, but other than what I just said, I couldn't really tell you what it's about. Like, there's not really a plot, so to speak. There's not big, there are big dramatic events, but I'm just saying it's not what you would normally kind of think of as a story. It's just much more like sort of the events in these people's lives, and it goes back and talks a little about, her mom's family and her dad's family, and just different things that happened to her and her family, and just the events of her childhood, and, growing up poor in this time period, and just her thoughts and her growing up. And it also, go into her parents' thoughts, and her parents are both, interesting characters, but they all just seem very much like real people just going through their real lives. And it sounds very boring to explain it that way, but it has been really enjoyable to read, and I do think that's just a tribute to the writing. Like her writing is very insightful. Like there's several places, usually multiple places each chapter, where I'm sort of will stop and think, and oh, that's good. And I'm not really even trying to write down quotes that I like or think are interesting, because there's just way too many of them. And it just kind of makes you think, and it's just, the prose is really, it flows really well. Like it's just kind of a pleasure to read. I always really enjoy that, especially I think as a writer, I notice just the writing style. And so someone's writing style that just in and of itself is a pleasure to read is always really, cool to me. And I want to learn from that as well. And then also I think she does have a way of dropping in little things that will pull you in, even though it's not necessarily what you would consider a plot. She'll still drop hints about what's going to happen. Like she might be talking about the dad's family and him and his brothers and how they grew up, and then she'll just kind of say, and then none of them lived to be older than 35 or whatever. And so now you're like, okay, you're like, how old is this dad? Like, so obviously he's gonna die sometime soon here or whatever. And so that kind of like pulls you forward with curiosity, even if it's not, like some, huge interwoven thing with plot twist, or I don't know, just like I said, what you would traditionally think of as like a plot in a story with different acts and, different particular story beats. She's still able to pull you forward by dropping hints. And because she also makes you care about the characters, you want to see these things unfold. So anyway, really fascinated by that. A little more than halfway through, and hoping to finish it up pretty soon, because there's still a lot of books I want to read this month. But I'm enjoying that one, and I think it'll make a good discussion book for a book club as well, because like I said, lots of insight and sort of things that make you think. So number 6, this doesn't really have to do with anything else I've talked about today, but this is something I've been thinking quite a bit about the past couple weeks. So I'm sure I've mentioned my book Shows that I wrote for Nano last year, and it was a book that I had been thinking about for years and years. Like I had the idea, it might have even been before I was married, but I know it was several years ago, and kind of had the seed of an idea and would often just write little notes about thoughts I had about it and just kind of let it percolate for a long time. At one point I tried to start writing it, and I got like maybe 2 or 3 pages in and just dropped it because it wasn't really working. And then finally I decided I wanted to write it for NaNoWriMo last year, because I've been it's been wanting to get out of my head for all these years. And so, but what happened, I already knew that I wanted to, it's not, let me think how I want to say this. It definitely has semi-autobiographical elements. There's a lot of things that are true of this girl and are true of her life and events in her life that are also true of me and my life. But, none of the other characters are really based on anything or any people that I know. And a lot of the events are not things that, I ever experienced anything like them. So it's just a mixture for sure. But all that said, I knew that I wanted to give her some struggles that I've had. And there were certain struggles I did not want to give her because it was very personal and very difficult things in my life. And, it's just not really stuff I wanted to put out there. And there's also things, like I said, that are not true of me. But because it's all so mixed up, I feel like definitely people that are reading it are not going to know what things are, I think it's going to be obvious that some of it, relates to me. Plus, I think anytime you're reading an author, you're always going to be thinking, where did this come from? How did they think of this? What was this from, something in their own lives? Like I know anytime I read a book, especially if it is like just general fiction, like this is, it's not like sci-fi or action adventure or anything like that. Like it's just this girl in her life, and I think that always makes you think of the author and wonder, where this came from. And so I know people are going to be wondering that. If I do get it published and people are reading it, they're going to be wondering and thinking, and thinking things about me because of reading this. And so I started reading this book to my writers group, which I go to every couple weeks at this point. And just been reading, you can read 5 minutes of your work. So reading it in 5-minute chunks, which is obviously very slow, and especially when I'm only doing it every 2 weeks. But I did want feedback, and that is, kind of the main new thing I've written lately, other than Firmament. So I've been reading it, but like I definitely have found the further I go, the more I'm getting nervous to share it. And I do think it's a good testing ground because I know these people, I trust them. They know me, they care about me, they care about my writing, they understand about writing and, how the truth and fiction gets all mixed. I mean, they're definitely a good outlet and a good testing ground for things like this, but even that is making me nervous. And so anyway, I had a conversation about that with the leader of the group, not this past week, but the time before that I went, because he was asking, of course, he knows me and knows that I've been through some of the things that are written about in the story so far. And so he's kind of like, oh, so how much of this is autobiographical? And I shared that is something that is scary about it, and he had brought that up too, that whether, even if it's completely not, if it's not autobiographical at all, and it's just 100% fiction, people will still wonder and have thoughts and ideas about it. So it's almost as bad either way. whether things in it that seem personal, or things that people would judge, whether those things are truth or fiction, people are going to have thoughts, and they're going to think, even if this didn't happen to you, like, what made you think of it? I don't know if that makes sense. And so anyway, it is very scary. And I went through that with October, because October is very personal in a slightly different way, but also very, semi-autobiographical. And because it does deal with dark topics, it deals with depression, and it deals with grief, and just, self-harm, and a lot of very personal things and very difficult things. And for a long time, I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't let anybody read it. I thought I was never going to publish it. And it took me years to get up the courage to get it out there, because I do believe that God gives us things in our stories for a reason, and that is to minister to others. And as a writer, I do believe that as part of my calling is to minister to others through writing and stories. And part of that is going to be things that God has put in my story, and things that he has given me to go through and to be able to encourage others in. And so I do think it's important to, like I said, get up the courage to do that. So I did that with October, and